Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth, and fancy seeing you here in June. I'm very welcome, my friends, and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Welcome back to Big Mouth, and you can keep this conversation going over on my Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Yes, Terminator Dark Fate sends Hollywood, SJW Hollywood, into meltdown. And here's the evidence of their meltdown. Yes, one of the biggest SJW journalists, Scott Mendelson. I've spoken about him before, and I will speak about him again. He's a very intelligent guy. I like listening to what he has to say, but he is an extremist, leftist, and he's really, really angry about the failure of Dark Fate. And here, on his Twitter thread, he's trying to spin it. He's so angry that a film starring 3 female leads has failed, and he's trying to spin other reasons for its failure. He's trying to prove it's not wokeness that has sent this film into one of the biggest flops, a 120 million plus flop. So let's have a little read. I've read this before. I've quote tweeted it, but this is what he has to say. Hollywood studios put out real movies. Really? They must be under my bed because I can't remember that recently. Adult skewing, non-franchise offerings. Really? In wide release almost every single week. Really? And yet audiences choose not to see them. He's lying. He is lying. No, Scott, just because a film doesn't get $1 billion doesn't mean nobody's going to see them. But maybe, Scott, that these adult offerings are still watered down pieces of crap that are no good because modern day Hollywood can't make good real movies. That's why people like Martin Scorsese are back, right? Anyway, yet audiences choose not to see them. Of course, it's our fault. It's our fault that there's no variety in Hollywood anymore, right? Audiences have had the choice to see the likes of The Kitchen, Ready or Not, Black and Blue, and Harriet, and ignore them because they're not good enough, Scott. We've got the choice, and we are hungry for real, varied adult movies, but the choice we're being given is simply not good enough. That's why we are rejecting these films, because every single film is about Hollywood's extreme leftist ideology, right? The audience that used to see movies just to see movies alongside the biggies now consume their filmed entertainment via streaming and video on demand. Right. Yes, Scott, I use all this tech to watch my films. But I tell you what, Scott, when there's a film I really want to see, I won't wait for it to be on this content, right? I actually would rush to the cinema. But the reason I will wait, because there's nothing being released that I need to go and see. But of course, when the Joker trailers came out, I said, I'm going to go and see them. First of all, I'm a DC fan, and I knew this film was going to offer me something different and something unique. So I went to the cinema. Again, Scott, you're manipulating things. Fewer audiences see non-tempo flicks in theatres, so audiences don't see the trailers for smaller films. And fewer watch live TV, so they fast forward the commercials for smaller films and then blame Hollywood for only putting out superhero movies or blame poor marketing. Scott, mate, we all forward commercials, but we don't miss marketing. The marketing is there, yes, and we see them. And if a film looks good enough, we will go and see them. I forward marketing, so how did I know about the Joker trailers? The internet. We're all on the internet. Marketing, viral marketing on the internet is so high these days. You can't miss out conversations about films or marketing about films. You are defending Hollywood. You are part of Access Media. You are part of the Hollywood system. And you and Hollywood are in meltdown. So instead of being honest, you've come out and blamed us for a failure of a mainstream blockbuster movie. We rejected this movie because we didn't want to see it, because it's nothing new. It's nothing different. It's just the same version of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, but it stars 3 female leads. One of those female leads, Linda Hamilton, is a welcome addition. An actor and a character from the Terminator franchise we've been desperate to see for a long time. But instead of bringing Edward Furlong back as John Connor and having them in, or even if she was too old to be in that future where he fights the machines and he's leading the rebels, we could have had flashbacks. We could have had an amazing film. But instead, Hollywood wanted to virtue signal, and basically an actor like Mackenzie Davis, is it? They forced her to go to the gym and rib up and be all masculine because of their political agenda. This film's wokeness is the reason that this film flopped. A director like Tim Miller coming out that the female leads in this film were going to scare toxic masculinity. It's things like that that put people off. So, Scott, you need to look at your own ideology and Hollywood's ideology to take the blame for Terminator Dark Fate failing. But as usual, it's the fans' fault. It's the public's fault. It's the movie consumers' fault. It's not Hollywood's fault at all. Sorry, Scott, it is. And no matter how hard you try, the truth about this film's failure is about political ideology and agenda and wokeness. That, my friend, is why this film has failed. Yes, now, this is brilliant. And I mean, this is a brilliant article from the New York Times. Martin Scorsese, I said Marvel movies aren't cinema. Let me explain. And once he has explained, we're going to talk about this. Cinema is an art form that brings you the unexpected. In superhero movies, nothing is at risk, a director says. By Martin Scorsese. So this article is actually by him. When I was in England in early October, I gave an interview to Empire magazine. I was asked a question about Marvel movies. I answered it. I said that I've tried to watch a few of them and then they're not for me. That they seem to me to be closer to theme parks than they are to movies, as I've known and loved them throughout my life. And that in the end, I don't think they're cinema. Some people seem to have seized on the last part of my answer as insulting or as evidence of hatred for Marvel on my part. If anyone is intent on characterising my words in that light, there's nothing I can do to stand in the way. Many films are made by people... Many franchise films are made by people of considerable talent and artistry. You can see it on the screen. The fact that films themselves don't interest me is a matter of personal taste and temperament. I know that if I were younger, if I'd come of age at a later time, I might have been excited by these pictures and maybe even wanted to make one myself. But I grew up when I did, and I developed a sense of movies, of what they were and what they could be. That was as far from the Marvel Universe as we on Earth are from Alpha Centauri. For me, for the filmmakers I came to love and respect, for my friends who started making movies around the same time that I did, cinema was about revelation, aesthetic, emotional and spiritual revelation. It was about characters, the complexity of people and their contradictory and sometimes paradoxical natures. The way they can hurt one another and love one another and suddenly come face to face with themselves. It was about confronting the unexpected on the screen and in the life it dramatised and interpreted, and enlarging the sense of what was possible in the art form. And that was the key for us. It was an art form. There was some debate about that at the time. So we stood up for cinema as an equal to literature or music or dance. We came to understand that the art could be found in many different places and in just as many forms. In The Steel Helmet by Sam Fuller, Persona by Ingmar Bergman, in It's Always Fair Weather by Stanley Donen and Gene Kelly, and Scorpio Rising by Kenneth Anger, in Very Civil by Jean-Luc Godard, The Killers by Don Siegel, or in films of Alfred Hitchcock. I suppose you could say that Hitchcock was his own franchise, or what he was our franchise. Every new Hitchcock picture was an event. To be in a packed house in one of the old theatres watching Rear Window was an extraordinary experience. It was an event created by the chemistry between the audience and the picture itself. It was electrifying. And in a way, certain Hitchcock films were also like theme parks I'm thinking of Strangers on a Train, in which the climax takes place on a merry-go-round at a real amusement park, and Psycho, which I saw at a midnight show on its opening day, an experience I will never forget. People went to be surprised and thrilled, and they weren't disappointed. 60 or 70 years later, we're still watching those pictures and marvelling at them. But is it the thrills and the shocks that we keep going back to? I don't think so. The set pieces in North by Northwest are stunning, but they would be nothing more than a succession of dynamic and elegant compositions and cuts without the painful emotions at the centre of the story, of the absolute lostness of Cary Grant's character. The climax of Strangers on a Train is a feat, but it's the interplay between the two principal characters and Robert Walker's profoundly unsettling performance that resonate now. Some way that Hitchcock's pictures had a sameness to them, and perhaps that's true. Hitchcock himself wondered about it, but the sameness of today's franchise pictures is something else again. Many of the elements that define cinema, as I know it, are there in Marvel pictures. What's not there is revelation, mystery, or genuine emotional danger. Nothing is at risk. The pictures are made to satisfy a specific set of demands, and they are designed as variations on a finite number of themes. They are sequels in name, but they are remakes in spirit, and everything in them is officially sanctioned because it can't really be any other way. That's the nature of modern film franchises. Market research, audience tested, vetted, modified, revetted, remodified until they're ready for consumption. This is the point I made the other day. If they didn't test screen things, if they didn't make sure everything was to everybody's liking and they just went on a gut feeling, maybe we will be part of a better industry right now. Another way of putting it would be that they are everything that the films of Paul Thomas Anderson or Claire Denis or Spike Lee or Ari Aster or Catherine Bigelow or Wes Anderson are not. When I watch a movie by any of those filmmakers, I know I'm going to see something absolutely new and be taken to unexpected and maybe even unnameable areas of experience. My sense of what is possible in telling stories with moving images and sounds is going to be expanded. So you might ask, what's my problem? Why not just let superhero films and other franchises films be? The reason is simple. In many places around this country and around the world, franchise films are now your primary choice. If you want to see something on the big screen, it's perilous time in film exhibition, and there are fewer independent features than ever. Another point I've been making. The equation has flipped, and streaming has become the primary delivery system still. I don't know a single filmmaker who doesn't want to design films for the big screen to be projected before audiences in theatres. That includes me, and I'm speaking as someone who just completed a picture for Netflix. It and it alone allowed us to make The Irishman the way we need to, and for that I'll always be thankful. We have a theatrical window, which is great. Would I like the picture to play on more big screens for a longer period of time? Of course I would, but no matter whom you make your movie with, the fact is that the screens in most multiplexes are crowded with franchise pictures, correct? And if you're going to tell me that it's simply a matter of supply and demand and giving the people what they want, I'm going to disagree. As I would, Martin. It's a chicken and egg issue. If people are given only one kind of thing and endlessly sold only one kind of thing, of course they're going to want more of that one kind of thing. But you might argue, can't they just go home and watch anything else they want? On Netflix, on iTunes or Hulu? Sure, anyway, but on the big screen where the filmmaker intended her or his picture to be seen. In the past 20 years, as we all know, the movie business has changed on all fronts, but the most ominous change has happened stealthily and under cover of night. The gradual but steady elimination of risk. Many films today are perfect products manufactured for immediate consumption, but many of them are well made by teams of talented individuals. All the same, they lack something essential to cinema. The unifying vision of an individual artist, because, of course, the individual artist is the riskiest factor of all. Absolutely. I'm certainly not implying that movies should be subsidised artful, or that they ever were. When the Hollywood studio system was still alive and well, The tension between the artist and the people who ran the businesses was constant and intense, but it was a productive tension that gave us some of the greatest films ever made in the world. Words of Bob Dylan, the best of them were heroic and visionary. Today that tension is gone, and there are some in the business with absolute indifference to the very question of art and attitude toward the history of cinema that is both dismissive and propriety a lethal combination. The situation sadly is that we now have two separate fields. There's worldwide audiovisual entertainment and there's cinema. Wow, yeah. They still overlap from time to time, but that's becoming increasingly rare. And I fear that the financial dominance of one is being used to marginalize and even belittle the existence of the other. He couldn't be talking about Disney, could he? I think he is. For another one who dreams of making movies or who is just starting out, the situation at this moment is brutal and inhospitable to art, and the act of simply writing those words fills me with terrible sadness. Wow, 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 wow. Martin Scorsese, I want to bend the knee to you. This is basically what I've been saying for ages. But guess what, Martin? I didn't say it as eloquently as you did. And you're saying, Mick, what's this got to do with Terminator Dark Fate and SJW Hollywood going into Meltdown? Everything. It's all connected. I read a thread from Scott Mendelson saying that there are real artistic movies out there, but we choose not to watch them. No, Scott. The films you call artistic and adult and auteur are simply watered down versions that are supposed to look edgy, supposed to trick us into thinking there's a variety in Hollywood. A fabulous piece. I'm so glad I read it to you, because this is everything that SJW Hollywood is. What happened when The Joker was being released? They all said it was a dangerous film, that this film should not be consumed by the public. It's dangerous. Yes, damn it. It's dangerous. That's why it's beautiful. Beautiful art is dangerous to consume, but it's wonderful and beautiful. And the commentary is commentary we do not get from SJW Hollywood, because SJW Hollywood, damn it, and I'm angry, don't care about someone suffering with mental health who can't get their sight meds. Do you understand? All they care about is representation, gender equality. They're important things, but they're not as important as starvation, urban blight, mental illness. But extreme left Hollywood don't care about those things. They said, we're going to sympathize with a white incel. Do you understand? Let me explain to you what that means. Racism, sexism, sexism. Basically, they didn't want to see that film, or for that film to be successful, because it starred a white man. But that white man wasn't just representing white men. He was representing my mental illness, your mental illness, everybody's mental illness. It's a film you come out of and you feel like you want to be a little bit kinder. An extreme SJW Hollywood they don't have that agenda. They are as big a problem as the extreme right. This kind of extreme politics shouldn't be in the entertainment industry. But what Martin Scorsese is saying goes beyond that, because it's all about the blockbuster. It's all about the superhero film. He's talking about Disney. What Disney and Iger have created is basically saying to other studios, come and get us. Come and do the same thing. And if you don't, you're going to fail. You're not going to make money as a business. And that is very dangerous. But over at Warner Brothers, all of a sudden, they're all for auteurs. And the Joker movie is the benefactor of that, because people are fed up. We don't just want to see dark movies. We want to see a variety of films. And Terminator Dark Fate is the perfect example. It's a blockbuster movie that does nothing that the others haven't. And don't get me wrong, if this film was released in the 80s, early 90s or early 90s, that film probably would have made 6, 7, 800 million globally, which is not going to happen now, obviously. But things have changed now because we're in the middle of a culture war. But what Martin is saying, as I say, goes beyond that. It's about creative freedom, making something artistic, making something dangerous, something the public can consume, and not just walk out and forget about it, right? And just say, okay, on to the next one. To actually talk about it and wonder what really happened in the film. Did the character imagine this? Was this real? Oh my God, look at what this man went through. Look at what society did to him. That's what the Joker movie is. And you and I want more, more, more. We are bored of Marvel. We are bored of Disney. And another great point that this guy says, and he doesn't mention Zack Snyder, but Zack Snyder is in the middle of this argument. Release the Snyder Cut and release the Ayer Cut are in the middle of what's going on with modern day Hollywood. And the problem with the MCU, Zack Snyder dared to create his own vision, to do something raw, dark, gritty and compelling. And because of Disney, because of the access media under their control, right? They nearly destroyed that man and they got him the sack. And if he was allowed to continue what he was doing, we would have seen an interconnected universe that actually meant something to people. And they destroyed that. And that is why, my friends, the fight for the release of the Snyder Cut, whether you like him as a storyteller or as a filmmaker, it really doesn't matter. We must break SJW Hollywood in two. Because it's really funny reading that article and reading Mendelssohn's thread. Mendelssohn isn't a film fan. He's an extremist. He's an extreme leftist, and he only looks at the industry as a means to an end, to forward his political agenda. And that, my friends, is a big, big problem. Because ultimately, Scott Mendelsohn and everyone in Hollywood who thinks the same, I don't care about your political agenda. I want to watch films and I want to be educated. I want to be compelled. I want escapism. And the fandom menace is fighting for that to happen. Just like the Release the Snyder Cut and Release the Ayer Cut movement is fighting for these two men's artistic vision to be seen. And this is exactly what Martin Scorsese is saying. It's a brilliant article and it gets his point across. So there can be no doubt now that he is speaking against Disney and Marvel. He respects the artists involved in those films. He's not dissing them. But what he's saying is, I'm going for these movies because that's all that's in our cinemas. And that is wrong. And this needs to change. We need a variety back in the entertainment industry. And we need to throw out extreme political agenda and commentary.